common open space. Again, that is up to you, but you could put that in there as something just to make it super clear of what your intent is here, which would be to disallow any kind of development in the open space. And then similarly, there's also a comment just kind of questioning about how you know when you get to the southern or northern property boundary of that open space, if somebody's just kind of back there walking in the woods or something like that, how would they know when they're going to move off of their site, basically just at a fence. You could also require no trespassing or private property signs or something like that, or something to inform people that, hey, you're at a property boundary and you can't, go any farther to the south or north. Basically informing people that, hey, this is now private property. So you could do that on the north and south sides as a way to inform potential residents who may be walking back there where the property line is, so that they know, where not to go. So we'll walk through the site plan review standards of section 18.06 as we typically do for site plans, starting on page 2 of my report. The first standard is that the uses proposed will not affect the public health, safety, and welfare. The uses and structures will be located on the site and plan to take into account topography, size of the property, uses, relationship and size of building to the site, etc. Here we have really a pretty straightforward project. We're just proposing single-family homes on individual lots, similar to what we see in many other areas of the city. So we don't think that the creation of a site condominium here, the eventual construction of single-family homes would be would adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare. Item B, safe, convenient, uncongested, and well-defined vehicular and pedestrian circulation shall be provided. They're not proposing any streets or any major parking areas. These are just going to be individual driveways coming off of Washington Street. The city's DPW would be in charge of approving the driveway locations, making sure that they're in an appropriate spot. We do see that, they're going to have, probably 2 stall garages on these houses, which is pretty typical. The third one talks about the arrangement of public or private vehicular and pedestrian connection to existing or planned streets in the area. Again, here we're just, same comment, basically, the driveways connected to Washington Street. We talked about sidewalks already. That's something we should discuss here in a minute when we're done. D is removal or alteration of significant natural features shall be restricted to those areas reasonably necessary to develop the site. The applicant kind of touched on that, so they're only intending to clear as much as they need for the houses and for the septic systems, and then the primary and reserve drainfield sites. The open space would be left as is according to the applicant, and again, if you want to further sort of memorialize that as a condition of approval, I would encourage you to do so if that's something that is of interest to you. Item E is that satisfactory assurance shall be provided that the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, codes, and requirements shall be met, which is something else that we, again, if approved, it would be, it'd be an obvious condition that they would have to comply with every other code moving forward, which is something that we attach to every approval that we do here. And then F is that the general purposes and spirit of this ordinance and the comprehensive plan shall be maintained. Here, the zoning district is R1. The lots, again, permit this type of development. They're their proper size. The setbacks would be, they would be fine as it's sort of sketched on the plan here. Those would be specifically reviewed during the individual, when the building permits are pulled for the individual homes. This existing master plan, been in effect for about 15 years now, also calls for single-family development in this area of the city, so we believe that it is consistent with the city's master plan. And then with respect to the floodplain, so most of the floodplain overlay district standards don't apply here, as the district is really written to address development within a floodplain. So the floodplain overlay district only applies to that portion of the site that is within the floodplain, as we mentioned earlier, except for this little tiny wedge that's kind of way up in the upper corner here. This would be on private property, this part of the floodplain here. But all the rest of the floodplain space back here is all going to be in that common open area. And that's where the applicant's proposing there to be no development, and we would certainly, I think that such an approach there would be appropriate. So there are a couple things I think for the Planning Commission to discuss. Sidewalks, potential, trespassing issues. If you want to require some kind of specific condition of approval, or require that something be specifically added to the master deed that would prohibit any kind of building activity in that open space, I think that would be an appropriate thing to discuss and to add, frankly. And then we would also, I guess, suggest as a general condition of approval, if you're inclined to approve it, to have the master deed and any other restrictions or bylaws or anything like that, to have those reviewed by the city attorney prior to any kind of final acceptance by the city. And that's just basically there to ensure that the language is in there that the city would want to see, to make sure that what you want to see happen here is going to be effectuated. We take a look at that as well, but I would defer to your attorney's judgment on what those items are. That's pretty much summarizes my comments. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you for Planning Commissioner deliberation.
Okay. So 3 issues that Amy's brought up. Discussion on any of those 3. Let's take sidewalks first.
Yeah.
He said they were required.
Yeah, I thought sidewalks were required.
They're required by ordinance,
Yeah,
yes.
by
so-
ordinance.
For new construction.
Okay, so
In the city limits, correct?
Yeah, unless you come to come to city council on this, or not.
Technically, the ordinance doesn't require, that is just something, I mean, technically, the ordinance does not state that they can come and get a waiver, it's just been the practice.
Yeah.
So
They can ask.
they can ask, yes.
Yeah.
But you don't even, we don't, I mean, if the council said they don't even want to review them, the council has that right.
But I think the sidewalk is kind of an over, 11 houses. Yeah.
Thanks a little bit.
Who's
Keeps kids off the
to
road.
say, once we get everything done, we as a city don't put sidewalk down the front part of the cemetery too, right? To make it more walkable.
Yes.
Right now,
People out on the roads.
we're just spending all our money trying to get our roads and infrastructure built. So
I know you guys are deliberating, but when you're done discussing the restrictions, is there a chance for me to say a few things before you guys make a final vote still?
Andy?
that's up to you, but that's,
I would,
that's
I
fine.
would like you to come back up after you, yes. But
And then as far as like Peggy's property, I'd like to see no trespassing signs put up at the developer's cost, and space them probably every, 15, 20 feet. I believe there is a,
is there a code to that or a rule?
when we did our farm, we did them every 15 feet, so.
Is that better than an actual like fence or something? Because I was thinking it might be nice if we have something keeping the property separate from the cemetery too.
It's private property, so it's hard. Commercial, we usually do that for commercial properties, but it's hard to tell a private owner they have to put a fence up.
So the side of the property that abuts the cemetery, I mean, it's pretty clear where the property line is, because there's like a drive that runs right along that southern property line. Then the cemetery starts. So the southern property line is of less concern to me, because it's pretty apparent where the line is there anyways. And 2, like, the cemetery is public, so if somebody wanted to walk from the open space onto the cemetery, they would be able to do that. I think the more concern would probably be to the north. I'd be a little, less inclined to suggest a fence there, because 1, it's a 100-year floodplain, so, during a flood, the fence might not last very long, for all we know. And 2, I think that I kind of like the idea of signs. It's a little less intrusive. Building a fence is probably going to require them to go down there and cut down a bunch of trees and do all that kind of stuff to actually get a fence installed. So that's kind of why I had initially suggested that signage of some kind might be a more appropriate solution.
If we go with signage, we can make them
Kids,
do it.
kids are not gonna see
So
signs.
far,
Kids are not gonna pay
right.
attention to signs.
We,
What's
this
that?
is time for us to.
If signage is up, we can require before, where the signage goes, in other words, like 20 feet before the property line. that you're-
Yeah, I mean, you can require whatever you want within reason for how those are installed, but, I mean, they need to have, whatever happens, I mean, there has to be a clear sign or something that says, hey, you know, private property, keep out, and so on and so forth.
I do have concerns about those that can't read, not being able to read a
I
sign.
understand it, but I live in the city and I don't have a sidewalk and I have people walk 2 feet from my house. So how do you address that, right?
Trespassing signs are pretty clear, the yellow or the whatever, no trespassing. I mean, yes. The master plan deed, or the, how do you refer
Master
to
deed.
it? The master deed?
Yeah.
The rules about wetlands, I guess I would like to make sure we see that. I don't know if that is something, maybe you can address it afterwards, if that is, there's language in the deed that says, hey, these wetlands are not to be really messed with.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's the planning commission's intent to disallow any kind of activity whatsoever in the open space, then I think that's a statement, you know, to that effect should be made extremely clear in the master deed. And then also, you know, and we want that in there, we want that to be approved by the city attorney, and we want that in our conditions of approval, because, you know, sometimes what can happen, it's pretty rare, but sometimes over time, a group of homeowners will get together and say, hey, well, let's just, you know, change this item and we'll go build something. And so all of these steps, if that were to happen, you know, that would give the city recourse to say, nope, this is not consistent with what we approved, this is not consistent with what you're allowed to do back there. So if they want to go build a playground or something, then you'd be able to say either no, no, you're not allowed, or two, you need to take it out and restore the site or something.
That's
like that.
language we can put into our remarks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would suggest highly redo that.
So we have 3 issues, those 3 issues. Any other issues?
Yeah, from the public health perspective, right? So there's concern about all the septic fields and, you know, topography generally going towards the river. I don't think anybody needs to worry about, on the other side of Washington Street, a groundwater gradient running towards them. So I'm not concerned about that, but I am not totally comfortable weighing in on approval unless I know there's additional evaluation done. I mean, one septic field, you know, when you go to place a septic field and you're near a body of water, there's setbacks and things like that for if you're gonna put a well in by a lake, et cetera. But one, you know, and any one of these would be compliant with setbacks from the river, but the total loading of 11 septic fields next to the Flat River, even though they're 500 feet away, isn't something I feel that anyone here is really qualified to evaluate from a like.
And the Kent County Health Department is really
Yeah, so
has to.
So if we were to approve this plan as is, none of us being a big fan of the idea of like 11 septic fields by the river, is there further evaluation then that, you know, before these parcels are used in this way that, you know, we're not really screwing the system?
Well, I mean, I think typically what happens is when a permit for a building is applied for, they also have to provide proof of approval from the health department. So the city, I don't think, has jurisdiction over the septic fields either, so the Kent County Health Department would come out, they'd do soil tests and whatever they do to determine whether the site is suitable for a septic tank. If it is, they would issue the permit, they would bring that with them when they apply for a building permit, they get the water connection and everything, and all of that would get constructed. If for some reason the county had some kind of a concern or didn't issue the permit, then, I mean, they're not gonna be able to build any kind of house there, it's just gonna sit vacant because, I mean, the city's, I mean, we're not gonna allow anyone to build a house without a sewer connection or a septic tank, you gotta have one or the other, right? So, Since there's no sewer there, they'd either have to extend the sewer, or they'd have to find some way to get some kind of an approvable septic on that property that would meet the county's standards. But that's something that the city does not have any jurisdiction over. It's part of the process, but the county would fully control how that
So
happens.
it's not our decision.
No.
And we have no control.
Good question.
Yeah, well, and I think it is a good point in terms of like people's concerns. Groundwater is going to flow towards the river. It's going to shallow groundwater, especially as we mimic topography. So all those lines are showing a gradient towards the river. So groundwater is not going to flow uphill towards your wells unless you're pumping at some kind of crazy rate and creating compression.
So I'm sure there's civil engineers that have looked at the water tables and the flow.
Well, I'm not so sure, but but there should
Any
be.
kind of development that is put in, civil engineers have to come in and study the underground flow and how it's going to affect things. Any other comments or concerns other than these three?
Just thinking, I'm definitely in favor of the sidewalks. I think this significantly changes kind of the character of the neighborhood. And I know we're talking about 2 parking spots per dwelling, but do we have any thoughts about people parking on the road there? Because the current residents do not, from what I see, because I'm down there all the time, park on the road because their houses are pretty offset. But when you've got houses right on the road now, we're going to have a bunch of parking.
How long is
It's
the,
already a narrow road.
how long are the driveways?
I believe the minimum setback for it was 30 or 35 feet from the right-of-way line. So the sidewalk there, that would be enough to park 2 cars in the driveway without overhanging the sidewalk. If they're small cars, maybe 4, and then an additional 2 to 3 in the garages.
So the site plan shows a 30-foot front yard setback from the right-of-way. If a sidewalk were built on the inside, she'd be on the outside. So yeah, so if the sidewalk were built on the very outside edge of that property line, they'd be 30 feet inside the sidewalk. If it's a 2-stall, wide sidewalk, then you could fit 2 cars on the sidewalk and 2 cars in the driveway, plus 2 cars in the garage. I mean, if on-street parking became a problem, I suppose the city council could address that separately
We could address
and
that.
say no street parking up there. But that's, I'm not,
That's future.
yeah, well, I
I mean, I can look at it, and I think I have the ability to restrict no parking. I'd have to look, but I mean, the road width is narrow, I agree, but it meets requirements for a public roadway, so, but that being said, we could look at restricting parking there.
If the issue arises.
Correct, yeah. And then also remember, during the winter months, we don't allow parking on the street, so.
Anything else, commissioners?
Can you get the county to come look at the road? I mean, we're putting a lot more houses.
It's their road, isn't it?
I'd like to see where the Act 51 map, where they end and we begin, because I know part of that is ours. I'd have to look at the Act 51 map. Part of it's ours, part of it's theirs. I don't know where.
Is it something that we could put in the master deed that, hey, no street parking?
yeah, I think so.
That would alleviate street parking.
Let's think, I'm 100% on that. We're talking about street parking, we're talking about something happening not on the property, but that's a better attorney question, frankly, I'm not sure. if
Can we
could do that.
dictate a conservancy easement as well? I'm wondering if we can do that because it's private property.
I don't know. I mean, if so, to me, I guess if the concern is that nobody wants the property touched, if the applicant doesn't want the property touched, let's just memorialize that in the condominium documents. I don't know that we would need to go that step. Certainly, at any point in the future, the association could reach out and say, hey, take this, but I don't know that, I guess I would question whether or not we have that authority. I honestly don't know.
We do.
So the only, I was thinking along those lines too, and I figured like, well, maybe it's an issue with the private property ownership or something like that. But I mean, I think one of the things that is leaving a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouth, even if that portion of land is protected from development from whatever we put in the master deed, it's still has this flavor of off limits to anybody but the condo, the owners. And the conservation easement would at least make people feel like, I mean, I know condo owners are gonna run out here and like yell at you for bumping your canoe into the land and whatever, but it would give people the sense that it's, you know,
Can we do that for private property though?
shared use. So-
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I mean, if it's private property now, it's just as off limits as it would be, you know, post-development, right? I mean, private property is private property, so, I mean, I think your point is well taken, I mean, I think you're right. It does feel, it might feel a little weird to have this, you know, this little piece of land to be the sort of exclusive control and use of these 11 people, but that's how site condominium works. That's why those projects with open space built into them are desirable, because people like to have a little chunk of open space that they control with their neighbors or their neighborhood. Or they can sort of limit what goes on there and all that.
Yeah, so
Again,
that's
pretty
like a
common.
selling point for the condos, and that's part of the value of the property, but if it was
Probably.
not, and it didn't delay things, it would be like it would be a nice little gesture or whatever, but. The other thing is, do you know anything about this, sorry, this mound here? I mean, it's in a floodplain, so that's either artificial from what's going on at Atwood, or that's artificial from what's going on in the.
I don't know the history of what's there.
Left over from the parking lot.
Well, that's what I mean, it's either hauled off from, but, so the other thing, this is like just a concern in general, anyway, is, this area, the current cemetery, an area just north of it, is on the radar from the state and the city as a Native American, village site and burial ground to the south of there. So A, the mound, I'm kind of like, huh, you know, but B, as the construction's going on here, it would be probably good for you guys to have that on your radar, that is something that, you know, should be looked after a little bit, and you may have to do some due diligence, just to, you know, it's a potential concern at the site. So.
You know, when you walk in a property back there, because I take my grandkids after a flood, and the river goes down, and we walk at edge looking for arrowheads. Once in a while, we will find one, not as often as we used to, but that mound you're talking about, that's exactly what it looks like to me, right? Being in the construction world, they own the property,
Yeah,
they just dumped it out there because it was their property and they didn't have to off-haul it, so that's kind of how it looks.
That's what I thought, you know, just it was so sharp, it doesn't look like it's been there that long, but just it was like, oh, interesting.
Wasn't that, Peggy would know this answer, wasn't that a horse farm at once too?
Cattle and horse.
Yeah.
Cows in the beginning and then
Yep.
horses.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion to add these three things into the recommendations, the 4 recommendations that are there already?
Oh, good.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Howard, you come up and...
Okay, I just wanted to mention the points that you called out, the no trespassing signs, we're amenable to that. Sidewalks, I think that's a good idea. If we could build them as we do the houses, that's usually how we do them. So we'll finish a house with the sidewalk along the frontage, and then when you're done, it all kind of ties together. The open space activity, has been talked about limiting everything that happens in the open space. We did exclude developable area into that open space that we could have used for other things, and that's that triangle of upland that's not part of the floodplain. In our condo docs, if there was a restriction, like a blanket restriction on any sort of development, that roughly follows that line, but then gives some option for the association, since it's bordered by that protection for the river, the backs of our lots and the cemetery. I don't think it would be the worst thing if they did want to do something in that area, whether it's a low impact path or even if it's a playground for the 11 residents or
On this side of the floodplain, 100-year floodplain you're talking about, right?
Yeah, not inside of the floodplain. So we could have two separate areas of open space, for example, in our condominium documents. One would be all of the floodplain area, and then the upland area, we could be a little more lax in these restrictions, just so they have some option to use the open space maybe in some way down the line. For the public health, it's Kent County is what we kind of defer to. We do investigations and test holes for those areas. And we will be beholden to all their standards, including separation distances from the floodplain, but that's all Kent County Health Department. The no parking requirement we're okay with, whether that's something we do in our condo docs or not, something the county has to put those signs, and we can look into the mound as well. But otherwise, yeah, we're amenable to the standards.
So one thing I would add with respect to the sidewalks, I'm fine with the sidewalks going in with home construction, but I think that there should be some kind of a date, maybe like 5 years from now, that even if they don't have all the homes built by then, that they still have to put in the sidewalks. Because what we see occasionally, not so much recently, but if housing sales slow down at some point, or something doesn't get built for 5 years, then you have this stopping and starting at the sidewalks. We would want the whole thing fully installed, irrespective of home construction, within some number of years, whether it's 2, 3, 5.
Can I ask, are you guys, if approved, when's your start date?
Well, if approved, we'd probably be going in for a building permit sometime this summer, yeah.
So construction will, you're hoping to start?
This year, yeah.
Okay. I think a tighter than 5 years.
Because we can require them to put a performance bond on the sidewalk. We've done that in the past.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then that way it's a guarantee it's going to get done no matter what. And they don't get their bond money back until the project's finished.
We've done those, that's fine.
Yep.
Do that.
Yeah, worked really well.
You want like 2 years or something instead of 5? Or not even worry about that ever again?
I think to have, like what Mike was saying,
No, yeah, we have these issues where we do make them put performance bonds on. We've
Yeah.
done that. We did that with Vertical Black.
yeah,
What kind of time frame?
What was the last one? 3 years?
I would go 3. No longer.
I think that sounds reasonable. I mean, I think it's a pretty high time.
2 is a little bit
Yeah.
pushing it.
It's a lot of things that could happen.
Okay. Can you review those recommendations for us, Andy?
Yep. So I guess one other question for you is, he asked about, so with respect to the open space restrictions, they were asking for a little more flexibility on that portion of the open space that was not in the 100-year floodplain. Is that something that the commission is agreeable to?
Something in the master deed?
Yeah, so the idea would be that instead of having them add something in the master deed that says no development of any kind in the open space, it would say something like no development of any kind within the 100-year floodplain, but that we still give them the flexibility to build, some kind of a trail system or whatever on this part, this little wedge here that isn't in the 100-year floodplain. So if you guys are okay with something like that.
Because I noticed the difference between the layouts. They made all the houses same acreage as the prior layout. There was some that were 1.3 acres. I mean, I think that would be a smart thing to do, to say, hey, as long as you stay out of the 100-year floodplain, we don't care what you do.
because living in the neighborhood, I'm hoping that we haven't had it in our neighborhood in a long time, is we have young families move back in with children. When we first moved in, we had a gazillion kids running up and down Washington trick-or-treating and all that. We don't have them anymore. And I think kids are going to be kids. We all were kids once. We all pushed the boundaries. So, yeah, I don't have a problem giving them that little wedge to low impact development. I guess that would probably be better. That way it's not a,
No clubhouse or something.
yeah, or jungle, you know what I mean? Like Creekside Kingdom going built back in there, right? And so just make it low impact. Trails, I don't have a problem with. because you know, the little boys are gonna go build forts with sticks, have fun. As far as parking, unless it becomes an issue, we as the city, we can step in at any time, but
It's county road too, so.
yeah, but like I live there too, and my driveway is short, and holidays, people do park out on the street, right? So if we make it a no parking, you're pretty much telling people, well, you can only have 4 people over, because that's all we can fit in our driveway. And I think that's kind of unfair, because if you go up and down Washington, all of our driveways are pretty short, and we all park out on the street during holidays and events. So I don't see it being every night deal. If it is, then we'll address it.
Yeah, it's also an unfortunate outcome of that
Yep.
type of thing too, that people end up just nosing right up onto the lawn.
Yep.
It's like, looks worse than having cars on the roadway.
But you never know too, that could, these 11 houses, if it becomes an issue, that may get the county to look at addressing the road, right?
Be a good idea.
Because we can only do what we have, and I know for a fact we don't go that far with it, so. And I believe the county, remember when we tore all the asphalt out, we graded it, that was a fun time, wasn't it? And the county finally stepped in and said, we'll pay, and they did, so. As far as I'm considered, that's their road, but
And there'd have to be documentation and, you know,
but I think that's all things that can be looked at in the future, right?
yes.
I think the counties will be more than willing to take a serious look at it and make their decision.
Would you like to review those
Okay.
recommendations then?
Yep, so for the conditions of approval, we have the 4 that were included in our staff report, which are, number 1, before they get any permits, they have to pay all their fees. 2, they have to comply with any requirements of the engineer, fire department, DPW, any other approving agencies. 3, they must maintain continual compliance with all other applicable ordinances, codes, and requirements of the city. 4, the proposed master deed shall be reviewed and approved by the city attorney. Then the 3 that we're adding, 5, sidewalks to be, shall be placed, sorry, I'm reading as I go here. So sidewalks shall be placed along the west side of Washington Street and installed with home construction. A performance guarantee shall be required to ensure completion, and all requirements shall be installed within 3 years of the date of approval. Number 4, no trespassing signs shall be installed along the northern property line. You have to specify.
I'd say within 15 feet of each other.
That way there's no, right, you have no trespassing signs on your properties. And how far apart do you have them? No. Yeah,
No.
Bill.
You're supposed to be within viewing distance. I mean, the sheriff department tells me you should be able to look one way or another.
Right, so 15 feet would be more than adequate.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do we want to stipulate that those need to be installed before first occupancy?
Yeah. I mean, that would be the case anyways, but we can specify it. And then the 7th one is that a provision to the master deed will be added that prohibits development in that part of the open space that is within the 100-year floodplain. Low impact and passive recreational activities may be permitted in that part of the open space that is not within the 100-year floodplain.
That would review that city attorney or?
Well, that'll be part of the master deed, so they'll,
Okay.
we haven't seen that yet, so they'll need to add that in there so that if Jessica and I will both take a look at it. I'll make sure the stuff is in here, and if she's good with the language, and if they've included what you've asked for, then we would approve it at that point.
Okay. I would entertain then a motion to approve this site plan with these 7 requirements.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Any further discussion? Sue, will you do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Holst,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett,
Yes.
and Chair Ellis.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Okay,
Now we have to get support.
now, back to old business. Thank you.
Thank you,
public.
guys.
Thank you, public, for your input. We appreciate it, actually. Old business, Andy, master plan update. You have some
Yes.
data or something?
Just 1 second here.
Yep. It's easy for us just to jump.
Yeah, at the beginning. It's because I need to switch order.
Okay, so at our previous planning commission meeting, so 2 meetings ago, I handed out, well, we talked about it, so I emailed out to you actually, the worksheet with all the goals and objectives from the previous master plan. At the last meeting, we spent the meeting sort of going through how you filled out that worksheet, which goals you liked, which goals you didn't like, objectives and so forth. Basically just gave me a whole bunch of edits and along with any other additional comments that you wanted to add to that for inclusion in the master plan. And so what we have done is kind of put together what's going to be the next chapter of the master plan, which is the vision, the goals, and the objectives. So if you recall, when we did the planning commission visioning workshop for the master plan, you came up with your own vision statement. The city council did the same thing, the parks board did the same thing, and the EDA did the same thing. And so we have attempted here to kind of merge all that together into one statement, which is actually 2 sentences. This is, feel free to edit any of this, by the way, so this is just kind of our first crack at it. So the vision statement that we initially came up with based on all of that input was that in 2040, Lowell will be a welcoming, vibrant, and active city characterized by walkable neighborhoods, high-quality public services, and engaged citizens. We will continue to work together and with our neighbors to address the changes resulting from growth while maintaining a strong sense of place and community pride. The rest of the document, well, I guess let's stop there. Does that sound like something that works for you? Is there any changes that you would want to make to that statement?
No, I think
Comments?
that's pretty close to what we all kind of were talking about. I like it.
So each of the boards that we talked to, there were a few things that kind of came up a few times. A couple of them wanted to kind of emphasize public services. Walkability was important amongst several boards. A lot of people, both in the survey and just through these workshops, have commented on how engaged Lowell residents are. I think it's evidenced by the meeting this evening. At every city council meeting that you go to, there's a dozen or 2 at least people there, which is honestly pretty unusual in my experience. There's usually not that many people at government meetings, so I think it does reflect a pretty high rate of engagement amongst your neighbors, which is really cool. So that's kind of what we were going for here, is to sort of make sure that we're including elements from all of those groups and boards.
Okay. The last sentence, the strong sense of place and community pride.
Mm-hmm.
We split that into 3, like say, while maintaining a strong sense of place, comma, pride, comma, and community. I mean,
Well, you just want to change it up.
well, the community pride, I think as a city, we should have pride in our schools, just not just community. It's everything. I think it's a separate entity. And then a sense of community is that also. I just wanted to distinguish the difference.
Yeah, I like that sentiment for that place, community, and pride.
or place, pride, and community.
Yeah, place, pride, and community.
Yeah.
How about community, place and pride?
Sure.
Whatever
I felt
flows
like
best.
all the other options were thrown out, so
Throw the third one.
Good option.
mine was alphabetical.
EPC.
Yep. Yes, we will absolutely make that change.
EPC. Place.
So the rest of the document here then is the revised goals and objective statements. So there are a few so we basically took what you guys gave us at the last meeting and crafted it into the goals and objective statements. We did make some changes in terms of how they were written. So the way that we like to write these is that we write the goal as the sort of overarching statement. City of Lowell will do this, or Lowell will be characterized by that, and it has kind of this future visionary tone to it. Then each of the objectives are more directive. So you have a vision statement, like the first one is Lowell will create an economic identity for the downtown and begin a long-term economic and physical revitalization program to capture those businesses and services that uphold the identity. And then underneath that, we have objective A, B, and C, and D, that just say, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? Work with the downtown, work with the DDA, property owners, businesses, and residents to encourage an appropriate mix of retail service and public uses for downtown Lowell. B, implement the 2018 downtown Lowell Place Plan. We added that one, so if you're not familiar with this, there was a document that was adopted about 5 years ago that is a placemaking plan for downtown Lowell that is mostly focused on public improvements, but there's crosswalks and bulb outs and street parking and street sweeping and all this kind of stuff that was adopted a few years ago. And I think a lot of what we talked about really is all sort of embraced by that document. So I think implementing that makes sense as a to-do item for the city as an objective. C, continue to hold activities and attractions that bring people to downtown, such as the summer concert series, Christmas through Lowell, and others. Then D, contact state and/or federal regulatory agencies and regulators to expand opportunities to utilize the Flat River and downtown Lowell as a recreational asset for the community. That's something that has come up a bunch of times here and elsewhere as we kind of work through this process. So we want to make sure we have something like that in there as an attempt to kind of work with those entities to make some progress with River Downtown. Are there any comments or questions or edits to any of those statements? You notice I had a typo I had to fix here under objective A.
Instead of contact, should it be something more like partner or something? Contact feels like a one-time thing to me as opposed to a ongoing, continuous objective.
D.
Yeah, sorry, under D.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments on any of those under number one? We'll just kind of go through these one at a time. That's okay with you guys?
Yes.
Goal 2, Lowell will undertake cooperative efforts with surrounding townships to increase opportunities for new industrial development that will benefit all communities. Then we have under item A, work cooperatively with surrounding townships to develop a mutually acceptable policy for the provision of water or sewer services at appropriate locations for industrial development that will benefit all communities. Then B, encourage and actively facilitate the development of new modern industrial development in the Lowell area that are sustainable, ecologically friendly, and of a scale appropriate for the community.
A scale appropriate, I like that. So we don't get some huge thing.
Any edits to either the statement or objectives A and B under goal 2? If not, under community image, goal 3, Lowell will maintain its image as an historic community featuring turn-of-the-century architecture, rich cultural history, and important natural features such as the Platte and Grand Rivers. And under objectives, we have A, improve access and views to the Platte River from downtown and other areas of the city and township, including building of paths, the construction of view overlooks, and others. Item B, Encourage building owners to restore building fronts to their original style. Information on historic district regulations, tax incentive, architectural styles, facade grants, and other issues will be made available. Then C, continue to proactively build out the regional trail network and work with LARA, the North Country Trail, and others to promote the community's high-quality motorized trail system.
Well, B, as a building owner in our downtown, when we want to do restoration and work on our historical society, does have monies that they match to a certain point. So that's always been there. I don't think a lot of building owners realize it, but I take advantage of it.
Any other comments or edits to goal 3 or objective A through C? Hearing none, we'll continue. Goal 4, this is under land use. Lowell will be characterized by walkable, stable neighborhoods and conveniently located public, commercial, and service uses. And then under the objectives, A, improve access to and walking along the Flat and Grand Rivers, including the ongoing build-out of the city's robust trail network. B, work on improvements to the streetscape and riverfront to make walking to and within downtown Lowell safer and easier. Pedestrian crossings at the Flat River in downtown Lowell will receive special attention in this regard. C, review pertinent zoning and related regulations to ensure that future development enables residents to walk to businesses and services that they need. Solicit resident opinions to find where improvements and pedestrian connections are needed and prioritize projects based on this feedback. And then D, facilitate new development and redevelopment in and around the downtown at an appropriate scale and design to build off the downtown as an important resource and destination.
Does this have to do with water use as well? Expanded water use?
I think it could. It's primarily a land use
Is there
goal,
somewhere to
but
look at the river and doing something with that?
such as, so what are you thinking, like?
Maintaining our resource for the city of keeping it so people can actually use their boats on it, maybe.
Can't get it in kayak launch right now.
Yeah, it's just,
Why is that?
it's a constant fight with Eagle, I know, but.
We don't have jurisdiction on the river, so that's, we don't have jurisdiction on the river, so that's a state issue. I mean, we can.
There's gotta be
The
something.
the only thing we can do is we could special assess all the residents to clean it, but in our charter, it is not our responsibility to maintain the river. And I don't have the money to maintain the river.
It's just a natural resource that the city is built around, and it's
Correct.
filling in, it's.
Right, it's a state,
You
yeah,
gotta
it's a
look
state
into
issue.
something.
Yeah, it's a
We
state
gotta do
issue.
something, and
Right.
making it part of our.
So I mean, we had, so under goal 1, we did have the objective to partner with state and federal agencies to expand opportunities to utilize the Flat River as a recreational asset for the community. So that's addressed there if you're thinking, so I mean, does that cover what you're thinking of, or are you thinking about
just-
something that's more different from that?
I don't know how to get footing to start, not cleaning it, but to start maintaining it. I know that King Milling has rights to the height level, and they maintain it very well, but
But they dictate the flow.
the vegetation behind any dam, the river floor behind any dam is gonna always increase, or get shallower and shallower. And it's like, when is it just a marsh? You know what I mean? Our city is built around.
Yeah, the channel on the east side is almost impassable.
It's